You're sitting at dinner with your family. Everyone's laughing, sharing stories, having a good time. But inside your chest, you feel empty. Like you're watching someone else's life through a window. Like the person everyone thinks they know isn't really you at all. You smile when you're supposed to smile. You laugh when you're supposed to laugh. You say the right things at the right times. But deep down, you wonder, who am I when nobody's watching? Who would I be if I didn't have to be what everyone expects? If you've ever felt like you're living someone else's life while your real self stays hidden, this video is your wake-up call. Because over 100 years ago, Carl Jung made a discovery so dangerous that it could destroy everything you think you know about yourself, or it could set you free in ways you never imagined possible. Jung discovered that most people live their entire lives without ever meeting their true self. They die wearing masks they never chose, playing roles they never wanted, being someone they never were. But here's the dangerous part. Once you see what Jung saw, you can't unsee it. Once you understand what he understood, your whole world changes, and some people aren't ready for that kind of change. Hit that subscribe button right now, because what you're about to learn will either terrify you or liberate you. Maybe both. Carl Jung discovered something that changed how we think about minds forever. He found that every single person walks around with two selves, the self they show the world and the self they hide from everyone, including themselves. Jung called the hidden self your shadow, and he called the self you show the world your persona, like a mask you wear to look good to others. But here's Jung's most dangerous discovery. Most people spend so much time wearing their mask that they forget there's a real face underneath. They become the lie they've been telling about themselves. They lose themselves so completely that they don't even know they're lost. Jung called this psychological death. You're alive, but you're not really living. You're breathing, but you're not really being yourself. This is happening to millions of people right now. They go to work, come home, eat dinner, watch TV, go to sleep, and repeat. But they never ask the most important question: is this really me, or am I just playing a character in someone else's story? Your mind is not broken if you've felt this way. You are not weird if you've wondered who you really are. There's a brain reason this feels so confusing, and Jung figured out exactly what it is. But before I tell you Jung's solution, let me share something that will blow your mind about how this psychological death happens in the first place. Niccolò Machiavelli wrote The Prince over 500 years ago. In it, he warned about something that's happening in your mind right now. He said that people learn to hide their true nature to survive in a world that punishes authenticity. Think about it. When you were a kid, what happened when you showed your real emotions? When you got too excited, too sad, too angry, too anything? You were probably told to calm down, quiet down, stop being so much. So you learned that being yourself was dangerous. You learned that to be safe, to be loved, to be accepted, you had to be different than you really were. Machiavelli understood that this creates what he called strategic masking. You develop a fake version of yourself that gets you what you need: approval, safety, love, acceptance. But here's what both Jung and Machiavelli knew that most people don't. The mask that protects you as a child becomes the prison that traps you as an adult. You start wearing the mask to survive, but eventually the mask starts wearing you. This is Jung's dangerous discovery. Your persona, the character you play to fit in, can completely take over your real self. You can become so good at being fake that you forget how to be real. And when that happens, you start living what Jung called a borrowed life. You're living according to other people's dreams, other people's values, other people's definition of success and happiness. You become a stranger to yourself. And that's a kind of psychological death that Jung said was worse than actual death. But Jung also discovered something beautiful. It doesn't have to stay this way. Subscribe to this channel if you're ready to meet your real self for the first time. Jung discovered that there's a process he called individuation. This is the journey from being who others want you to be to becoming who you actually are. It's the most important work a human being can do. But Jung warned that individuation is dangerous. Why? Because when you start becoming real, you start disappointing people who benefited from your fakeness. When you stop being the perfect child, you disappoint parents who liked having a child who never caused problems. When you stop being the people pleaser, you upset friends who liked having someone who always said yes. When you stop being the doormat, you anger people who liked walking all over you. Jung said this was inevitable. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But that privilege comes with a price. Disappointing everyone who preferred your mask. This is where Jung's discovery gets dangerous. Because most people, when faced with this choice, choose to keep the mask on. They choose fake peace over real authenticity. They choose borrowed acceptance over genuine self-love. But some people, the brave ones, choose differently. They choose to become real, even if it means becoming alone for a while. Let me tell you about someone who made this choice. Jung worked with a woman who came to him feeling completely empty inside. She had everything society said she should want: a successful husband, beautiful children, a nice house, respect in her community. But she felt like she was slowly disappearing. She told Jung, "I don't know who I am anymore. I'm a good wife, a good mother, a good daughter, a good friend, but I don't know what I want, what I feel, what I think. I don't know if I've ever made a single choice that was really mine." Jung helped her see that she had spent her entire life building a persona that pleased everyone else. She had become so good at being what others needed that she had lost track of what she needed. The dangerous part came when Jung told her the truth. To find herself, she would have to risk losing everything that her false self had built. She would have to start saying no to things that didn't feel right, even if it disappointed people. She would have to start asking for what she wanted, even if it seemed selfish. She would have to start being honest about her feelings, even if it made others uncomfortable. This terrified her, because her persona wasn't just how she saw herself, it was how everyone saw her. Changing meant risking rejection, judgment, conflict, maybe even losing relationships. But Jung asked her a question that changed everything. What's more dangerous, risking the loss of relationships that only exist because you're pretending to be someone else, or losing yourself completely? That question is for you too. What's more dangerous, disappointing people who only like your mask, or dying without ever knowing who you really are? If you've ever felt like you're living someone else's life, write "I want to be real" in the comments below. Let's build a community of people who choose authenticity over approval. Now, I know some of you are thinking, but what if people don't like the real me? What if I'm not as good as the person I've been pretending to be? What if my real self is disappointing? Jung discovered something amazing about this fear. He found that the people we're afraid to disappoint are usually the people who have the least authentic connection to us anyway. Think about it. The people who truly love you want you to be yourself. They want you to be happy, fulfilled, authentic. They want you to shine, not dim your light to make others comfortable. The people who get upset when you become real are revealing something important. They were never really connected to you anyway. They were connected to your performance, your service, your willingness to be small. Jung called these shadow relationships, connections that only exist because one person is hiding their true self to please the other. Melanie Klein, another brilliant mind doctor, studied how this pattern starts in childhood. She found that children learn very early whether their real selves are welcome in their families or not. If a child's big emotions are shut down, they learn that their feelings are too much. If a child's questions are dismissed, they learn that their curiosity is annoying. If a child's natural energy is constantly controlled, they learn that their vitality is a problem. Klein discovered that these early messages create what she called internal rules about who you're allowed to be. Rules like, don't be too much, don't ask for too much, don't want too much, don't feel too much. These rules become the blueprint for your persona. You build a false self that follows all the rules, that never asks for too much, that never feels too much, that never wants too much. But Klein also discovered that these rules aren't really about you. They're about other people's comfort with authenticity. They're about other people's fear of real emotions, real needs, real humanity. The rules that shaped your persona aren't truth. They're just one family's or one community's or one culture's
But you have to be willing to take the
realness.
first step.
But you don't have to
be
follow
willing to look in
rules
the
that
mirror
were
and
never
ask,
really about
who
you
am I
in the
really?
first place.
And am I willing to be that person,
who also
even if
studied
it's
this,
scary?
discovered something that will
Machiavelli
set you
said
free.
that fortune
He
favors
found
the
that
bold.
there's a difference
Jung
between
said
your
that
true
life
self
rewards
and
the
your
authentic.
false self.
Both
Your
understood
false
that
self
hiding
is the
who you
people
are is the
pleaser,
most
the
dangerous game of
perfectionist,
all.
the one who
Because you can
always
spend your
has it
whole
together.
life playing it safe,
Your false self
being
never
what
has
others
needs,
want,
never
staying
makes
small
mistakes,
to keep the
never
peace.
causes problems.
But at the end of that
But
life,
your true
you'll
self
realize
is
you never
human.
actually
Your
lived
true
it.
self has
You'll realize
needs,
you spent your
makes
one
mistakes,
chance at existence
feels big
being
emotions,
someone else.
wants things,
That's
gets
the real
tired,
danger
gets
Jung discovered.
excited, gets
Not
sad,
that becoming
gets
yourself
angry.
is risky,
Winnicott
but
said that
not
most
becoming
people are so
yourself is the
afraid of their
biggest
true
risk of
self
all.
that they try
So
to
let
kill
me
it
ask
with
you the
kindness.
question Jung asked
They
everyone who
smother
came
it
to
with
him.
perfectionism.
What's more
They
important
bury
to
it
you,
under layers
being
of
liked by
achievement
people
and
who didn't
approval
really know you,
seeking.
or
But your
being
true
loved by
self
people who
can't
see
be
you
killed.
clearly?
It can
What
be
matters
buried,
more,
ignored,
having a life that
silenced,
looks good
but
from
it
the
never
outside,
actually dies.
or having a
It
life
just
that
goes
feels good from the
underground
inside?
and waits for
What's
you to
more
remember
valuable,
it's there.
the approval of people who need
Jung's
you to be
dangerous
fake,
discovery
or
was
the
that this
respect of
buried
people who
self,
appreciate
your
your
real
realness?
self, is
If you're
always
ready
trying
to
to
choose
communicate with
authenticity
you.
over approval,
It speaks
write,
through your
"I choose
dissatisfaction
myself"
with
in the
your
comments
perfect
below.
life. It
If you're
speaks through
tired
your
of living
emptiness
someone else's
despite
dream,
your achievements.
write, "I want
it
my
speaks through
own
your
life."
longing for
If you're
something
done
you
being
can't
small to
even
make
name.
others comfortable,
Your true
write,
self
"I
is the
choose
voice
to
that
grow."
says, this
Because
isn't me,
here's what
when
Jung
you're
and
living someone
Machiavelli
else's
both
dream.
understood.
It's the
When people
feeling
who
that
have been
says,
hiding
I
start showing
want
up
more,
as themselves,
when everyone tells you to
everything
be
changes.
grateful for what you have.
Not just for them,
It's the
but for
knowing that
everyone
says
around them.
there has to be another
Your
way when
authenticity
you're
gives
stuck
others
in
permission
patterns
to be
that don't
authentic
fit.
too.
That voice,
Your courage
that
inspires
feeling,
their
that
courage.
knowing,
Your
that's
freedom
not your
shows
enemy.
them that freedom is
that's
possible.
your rescue mission
You become
from
living
yourself.
proof that
But
people
here's
can
where
change,
it gets dangerous
that
again.
masks can come
Jung
off,
found that when
that
people
true
start
selves can
listening to their
emerge from
true
years
self,
of hiding.
they often discover that
Your
their entire
individuation
life
becomes their
has been built
inspiration.
around their false
Your healing
self.
becomes their hope.
The job they
Your
chose
truth
might not
becomes
fit who
their
they
possibility.
really are.
This
The
is how the
relationships they
world
built
changes.
might only work if
One
they keep
authentic
pretending.
person at a
The
time.
goals they've
But
been
it starts
chasing
with you.
might not be what
It
they
starts
actually
with
want.
choosing to see
This
Jung's
is
dangerous
terrifying,
discovery not as
because
a threat,
it means that becoming
but as an
real
invitation.
might require
An invitation
changing
to stop
everything.
playing small.
Jung
An
called
invitation
this
to stop
the
hiding.
dark night
An invitation
of the
to
soul.
stop living someone else's
It's
life
the moment
and
when you
start living
realize
your
that to
own.
live authentically,
The question isn't
you
whether
might
you're
have to let
capable
go
of
of everything that
authenticity.
feels safe.
The question is
But
whether you're
Jung
willing to
also
risk
discovered
everything that
something
your
that
false
makes it
self
all
built
worth
to
it.
discover
On
everything
the
your
other
true
side
self
of that
can
darkness
create.
is a life that
Are you
actually
willing?
fits you. A life
Jung
where
spent
you
his
don't have
entire
to
life
pretend,
studying people who
perform,
said
or
yes to
please
that
your way
question.
through every
He
day.
found that they face
A
the same
life where you can
fears,
breathe
the same
freely because
resistance,
you're finally
the same
being
doubt
yourself.
that you're feeling right
Machiavelli
now.
understood
But they also
this
discovered
too.
something that
He
changed
wrote that
everything.
the greatest
On
power
the
a
other
person
side of
can
that
have
fear
is the
is a
power
life
to be
worth living.
authentic in a
On the
world
other
that
side of that
rewards
resistance is
conformity.
freedom.
When you
On the
stop
other side of
needing
that doubt is
everyone's
a version of
approval,
yourself
you
you'll
become
actually like.
unstoppable.
Jung called
When
this
you stop
the
hiding
treasure
your real
hard to
thoughts and
attain.
feelings,
Not
you
because
become
it's
magnetic.
difficult to reach,
When you
but
stop
because it requires
apologizing for taking
everything
up
you think
space,
you are
you
to
become
discover
powerful.
everything you
But
actually
Machiavelli
are.
also warned that authentic
Machiavelli
people
called
make
it the
others
ultimate
uncomfortable.
victory.
Why?
winning the battle
Because
for your
your
own
freedom
soul.
reminds them of
I
their
call it
cage.
coming
Your
home to
honesty
yourself.
highlights their
And
pretending.
it's the most important
Your
journey
courage
you'll ever
shows
take.
them their fear.
Remember, you have
Some
the right to
people will
disappoint
try to
people
pull
who want
you
you to
back
stay
into the
small.
persona they're
Your
comfortable
freedom
with.
is not being
They'll
mean.
call you selfish
It
for
is your
having
right.
needs.
You are
They'll
not
call you
responsible
difficult
for managing
having
other people's
boundaries.
comfort
They'll
with your
call you
authenticity.
changed for being real.
You didn't come into this world to
Machiavelli
be
said this
everyone's
is the price of
emotional support.
authenticity.
You
You
came here
disappoint
to be
people
yourself.
who preferred your performance
And
to your
yourself is
presence.
exactly who
but
the
you know
world
what?
needs you to
That's
be.
their loss,
Jung's
not
dangerous
yours.
discovery
You have the
isn't
right to
dangerous
disappoint
because it will
people who
destroy
want
your
you to
life.
stay small.
It's dangerous
Your
because it will
freedom
destroy
is
the
not
lie
being
you've been
mean.
living and
It is
replace
your
it with
right.
a truth worth dying
You didn't
for.
come into the world
But
to
you
be
don't have to
everyone's
die for this
emotional
truth.
support system.
You just have to be
You are
willing
not
to live
responsible for
The
fixing
choice
what
is
others
yours.
won't face about
every day,
themselves.
in every moment,
Carl Jung
with
said,
every decision to be
becoming
real or
yourself
stay
means
hidden,
disappointing
you're choosing
others
who
who
you want to
benefited from
be.
your fakeness.
What are you going to
These
choose?
aren't just pretty
Subscribe
words.
if you're
These
ready
are
to choose
permissions
yourself.
backed by the
Comment
greatest
if you're done
minds who
living
ever
someone else's
studied
life.
human psychology.
Share if you want to help others
Subscribe to
find their
this
way
channel
home to
if
themselves.
you're ready to choose your
Because
true
together,
self
we're
over
building a
everyone
community
else's
of people
comfort.
who refuse to hide
Now,
anymore.
let me tell
Together,
you what happens
we're
when you
proving that
start applying
authenticity is
Jung's
possible,
dangerous
that
discovery
real
to
selves
your
can
life.
emerge, that true
First,
life can
you'll
begin
feel
at
guilty.
any age.
The people
Together,
who benefited
we're
from
showing
your
the world
false
what
self
Jung's
will
dangerous
not
discovery
celebrate
really
your
means.
true self.
That becoming
They'll
who
try
you
to
really
shame
are
you
is
back into your
undangerous at
old
all.
patterns.
It's the only
They'll say
safe
things
choice
like,
you can make.
"You've changed,"
Thank
as
you
if
for
that's a
watching.
bad thing.
Thank
This
you for
guilt
listening.
is not
Thank
real
you for being
guilt.
brave enough to
Jung
consider
called
that
it
maybe,
collective
just
guilt.
maybe, you're
The
ready to
feeling
meet
you
your
get
real
when you
self.
stop following
Now,
rules that were
go
never
be
really
yourself.
yours to begin
The world
with.
is waiting.
Real guilt
Klein
happens
discovered
when you
that these
actually
early
do
messages
something
create
wrong.
what she called
Fake guilt
internal
happens
rules
when you do
about who
something
you're
right
allowed to
that
be.
others don't like.
Rules like don't be too much.
Learning to
don't
tell the
ask for too
difference
much,
between real
don't want
guilt
too much,
and fake
don't
guilt
feel too
is
much.
part of Jung's
These rules become the
individuation
blueprint
process.
for your persona.
And it's one of
You
the
build
most
a false self
important
that
skills
follows all the
you'll
rules,
ever develop.
that never asks for too
Second,
much, that never
you'll
feels
start to
too much,
feel more energy.
that never wants too much.
Jung discovered
But
that
Klein
maintaining
also
a false
discovered
self
that these rules
requires
aren't really
enormous
about
amounts
you.
of psychological
They're
energy.
about other people's
You're
comfort with
constantly
authenticity.
monitoring, adjusting,
They're about
performing,
other people's fear of
pretending.
real emotions,
When you start
real
being
needs,
real,
real
all
humanity.
that energy becomes
The rules
available
that
for
shaped your
actually
persona
living your life.
aren't truth.
You'll have energy for
They're
things
just
you
one
want to
family's
do
or one
instead of
community's
just
or one
things you
culture's
have to do.
discomfort with
Third,
realness.
you'll
But you
start
don't have to
attracting
follow
different
rules
people.
that were never really
Jung
about
found
you
that
in the first
authentic
place.
people magnetize
Donald
other
Winnicott,
authentic people.
who also
When you
studied
stop
this,
hiding, you give others
discovered
permission
something
to
that will
stop
set you
hiding
free.
too.
He
You'll
found that
discover
there's a
that there are
difference between
people
your
out
true
there
self
who
and
actually
your false
prefer the
self.
real you to the
Your
fake
false
you.
self is the
People who love
people-pleaser,
your honesty,
the perfectionist,
appreciate your
the one
boundaries,
who always has it
celebrate
together.
your growth.
Your false self
These are the
never has
relationships
needs,
worth having.
never makes
These are the
mistakes,
connections that
never
Jung
causes
called
problems,
soul
but your
relationships,
true self is human.
where both people
Your
can
true
be
self
real
has
without
needs,
fear.
makes mistakes,
Fourth,
feels big
you'll
emotions,
start making
wants
different
things,
choices.
gets tired,
When you know
gets
who
excited,
you really are,
gets
you
sad,
can make choices
gets
that
angry.
actually fit you instead of
Winnicott
choices
said
that
that
look
most
good
people
to
are
others.
so afraid of their
You
true
might
self
change
that they
jobs,
try to kill it with
end
kindness.
relationships,
They smother
move
it
to a
with
different city,
perfectionism.
pursue
They
different
bury
dreams,
it under layers of
or you might
achievement
stay
and
exactly
approval
where you
seeking.
are, but show
But your
up
true self
completely
can't
differently.
be killed.
Either
It
way,
can be buried,
your choices
ignored,
become yours
silenced,
instead of
but it
echoes
never
of what others
actually
expect.
dies.
But I want
It
to
just
be
goes
honest with you
underground
about
and
something.
waits for you to remember
Jung's
it's
path of
there.
individuation
Jung, his
isn't easy.
dangerous discovery
Becoming real
was
in a
that this
world that
buried
rewards
self,
fakeness
your real
takes
self,
courage.
is always
Standing
trying to
out
communicate
takes
with you.
strength.
It
Disappointing
speaks through
others
your
takes
dissatisfaction
practice.
with your perfect
You might
life.
lose some
It
people
speaks
along the
through your
way.
emptiness
You might face
despite your
judgment,
achievements.
criticism, rejection.
It speaks through your
You
longing
might
for
feel
something you
alone
can't even
sometimes.
name. Your
But
true
Jung
self is the
discovered
voice that
something
says,
beautiful.
"This
When
isn't
you're
me."
willing to be alone
When you're
with your
living
true
someone
self,
else's dream.
you're never
It's the
really
feeling
alone.
that says, "I want
When you
more."
like who you are,
When everyone tells you
other
to be
people's
grateful for what you
opinions
have.
matter less.
It's the knowing
When you
that
accept
says,
yourself,
there has to be
you
another
don't
way.
need everyone
When you're
else's
stuck in patterns
acceptance.
that don't fit.
And slowly,
That voice,
you'll discover
that
that the
feeling,
people worth
that
knowing will find you.
That's not your
The
enemy.
opportunities that
That's
fit
your
you
rescue
will
mission
appear.
from yourself.
The life that's
But
actually
here's where
yours
it gets
will
dangerous
unfold.
again. Jung
called
found
this
that when people start listening
synchronicity,
to their true
when your
self,
outer life
they often
starts
discover
matching
that
your
their
inner
entire
truth.
life has been built
When you
around their
stop
false
fighting
self.
who you are,
The job
life
they
stops
chose might
fighting you
not
back.
fit who they
But
really
you have
are.
to be willing to
The
take the first
relationships they
step.
built
You
might
have to
only
be
work
willing
if they
to
keep
look in the
pretending.
mirror and
The
ask,
goals they've
who
been
am I
chasing
really?
might
And
not
am I
be
willing to
what they
be that
actually
person,
want.
even
This
if it's
is
scary?
terrifying. Because it means
Machiavelli
that
said that
becoming real
fortune
might
favors
require
the
changing
bold.
everything.
Jung said that life
Jung called
rewards
this
the authentic.
the dark night of the
Both
soul.
understood that
It's the
hiding
moment
who
when you
you are
realize
is the
that
most
to live
dangerous
authentically,
game
you
of
might
all.
have to let go of
Because
everything
you can
that
spend
feels
your
safe.
whole life playing
But
it
Jung
safe,
also
being
discovered
what
something
others
that
want,
makes it all
staying
worth it.
small to
On
keep
the other
the
side
peace.
of that darkness is
But
a
at the
life
end
that
of that
actually
life,
fits you.
you'll realize
A life where
you
you
never
don't have to
actually
pretend,
lived it.
perform,
You'll realize
or
you spent
please
your
your way
one chance
through
at
every
existence
day.
being
A
someone
life
else.
where you can breathe
That's
freely
the real
because you're
danger
finally
Jung
being
discovered.
yourself.
Not that becoming yourself
Machiavelli
is
understood
risky,
this too.
but that not
He
becoming
wrote
yourself
that the greatest
is
power
the
a person
biggest
can
risk
have
of
is the
all.
power to be
So
authentic
let me ask
in a
you the
world
question
that
Jung
rewards
asked
conformity.
everyone who came to him.
When you stop
What's
needing
more
everyone's
important to
approval,
you? Being
become
liked by people who
unstoppable.
don't really know
When
you,
you stop
or
hiding
being
your real
loved by
thoughts and
people who
feelings,
see you
you
clearly?
become
What
magnetic.
matters more,
When
having
you
a
stop
life that looks
apologizing
good
for
from the
taking up
outside,
space,
or having
you
a life
become
that feels
powerful.
good from the
But
inside?
Machiavelli also
What's more
warned that
valuable,
authentic people
the
make
approval
others
of people who need
uncomfortable.
you to be fake,
Why?
or the respect
Because
of
your
people
freedom
who
reminds
appreciate
them of
your
their
realness?
cage. Your
If
honesty
you're ready to
highlights their
choose
pretending.
authenticity
Your
over
courage
approval,
shows them their
write,
fear.
I choose
Some people will
myself
try to
in the
pull you
comments
back into
below.
the persona they're
If you're
comfortable
tired
with.
of living someone
They'll call you
else's dream,
selfish for having
write,
needs.
I want my
They'll
own
call you
life.
difficult for having
If you're done
boundaries.
being small
They'll
to
call
make
you
others
changed
comfortable,
for being
write,
real.
I choose
Machiavelli
to grow.
said, this is the price of
Because here's
authenticity.
what Jung and
You disappoint
Machiavelli
people who
both
preferred your
understood.
performance to your
When
presence.
people who have been
But you
hiding
know
start
what?
showing up as
That's their
themselves,
loss,
everything
not yours.
changes.
You have
Not
the right
just
to
for them,
disappoint people
but
who
for
want you to
everyone
stay
around
small.
them. Your
freedom is not
authenticity
being
gives
mean.
others permission
It
to
is
be
your
authentic
right.
too.
You didn't come
Your
into the world to
courage
be everyone's
inspires their
emotional support
courage.
system.
Your freedom
You are not
shows
responsible
them that
for
freedom
fixing what
is
others
possible.
won't face about
You become
themselves.
living proof that
Carl
people
Jung
can
said
change,
becoming yourself
that
means
masks
disappointing
can
others
come
who
off,
benefited
that
from
true
your
selves
fakeness.
can emerge from
These
years
aren't just
of hiding.
pretty words.
Your
These are
individuation
permissions
becomes
backed
their
by the greatest minds
inspiration.
who ever studied
Your
human
healing
psychology.
becomes their hope.
Subscribe to this
Your
channel
truth
if you're ready to
becomes
choose
their
your true self
possibility.
over everyone
This
else's
is how
comfort.
the world changes,
Now,
one
let me tell you
authentic
what
person
happens
at a
when you start
time.
applying Jung's
But it
dangerous
starts with
discovery
you.
to your life.
It starts with
First,
choosing
you'll
to
feel
see
guilty.
Jung's
The
dangerous
people who
discovery
benefited from
not
your
as a
false self
threat,
will not
but as an
celebrate your true
invitation.
self.
An
They'll try to
invitation
shame you
stop
back into your
playing
old
small,
patterns.
an
They'll say
invitation
things
to
like,
stop
"You've
hiding,
changed,"
an
as if
invitation
that's a
to
bad
stop
thing.
living someone
This
else's
guilt
life
is not
and
real
start
guilt.
living your
Jung
own.
called it
The question
collective guilt.
isn't whether you're
The
capable
feeling
of
you get when you
authenticity.
stop following
The
rules that were
question
never
is
really yours
whether
to
you're
begin
willing
with.
to risk everything
Real
that your
guilt
false
happens when you
self
actually
built
do
to
something
discover
wrong.
everything your true
Fake
self
guilt
can
happens
create.
when you do something right
Are
that
you
others
willing?
don't like.
Jung spent his
Learning to tell
entire
the
life
difference
studying
between real
people who
guilt
said
and fake
yes to
guilt
that
is part of
question.
Jung's
He
individuation
found
process,
that they faced the same
and it's one of the
fears,
most
the
important
same
skills
resistance,
you'll
the
ever
same
develop.
doubt that you're feeling
Second,
right now.
you'll start to feel
But
more
they also
energy.
discovered something that
Jung
changed
discovered that
everything.
maintaining a false
On the
self
other
requires
side of that
enormous
fear
amounts of
is a life
psychological
worth
energy.
living. On
You're
the other
constantly
side of that
monitoring,
resistance is
adjusting,
freedom.
performing,
On the other side of
pretending.
that doubt
When
is
you
a
start
version of
being
yourself
real,
you'll actually
all that
like.
energy becomes
Jung
available
called
for
this the
actually
treasure
living your
hard
life.
to attain.
You'll have energy
Not
for things
because
you
it's
want to do
difficult to
instead
reach,
of just
but
things
because
you
it
have
requires
to do.
everything you think
Third,
you are
you'll start
to discover
attracting different
everything you
people.
actually are.
Jung found that
Machiavelli
authentic people
called it the
magnetize
ultimate
other
victory,
authentic people.
winning the battle
When you
for
stop
your
hiding,
own soul.
you give others
I call
permission
it
to
coming
stop
home
hiding
to yourself. And it's
You'll
the most
discover
important
that there are
journey
people
you'll
out
ever
there
take.
who actually prefer
Remember,
the real
you have the
to
right
the
to
fake
disappoint
you.
people who want
People
you to
who
stay
love your
small.
honesty,
Your freedom
appreciate
is
your
not being
boundaries,
mean. It
celebrate
is
your
your
growth.
right. You are
These
not
are the
responsible for
relationships worth
managing
having.
other people's comfort
These are
with
the
your
connections that Jung
authenticity.
called
You didn't
soul
come into this world
relationships,
to be everyone's
where both
emotional
people can be
support.
real
You
without
came
fear.
here to be yourself,
You'll
and
start making
yourself
different
is exactly
choices.
who the world
When you
needs
know who
you
you
to
really
be.
are, you can make
Jung's
choices that
dangerous
actually fit
discovery
you instead
isn't
of
dangerous
choices that look
because
good
it
to
will
others.
destroy your
You might
life.
change jobs
It's dangerous
and
because it will
relationships,
destroy the
move to
lie
a different
you've been
city,
living and
pursue
replace
different
it with a
dreams.
truth
Or
worth
you
dying
might stay
for.
exactly where you are,
But you don't
show
have
up
to
completely
die for
differently.
this truth.
Either way,
You just
your
have to be
choices become
willing to
yours
live it.
instead of
The
echoes
choice
of what
is
others
yours,
expect.
every day,
But I want to be
in
honest
every
with you
moment,
about something.
with every decision
Jung's
to
path
be
of
real or
individuation
stay hidden.
isn't easy.
You're choosing
Becoming
who
real
you
in a
want to
world
be.
that rewards
What are you
fakeness
going
takes
to
courage.
choose?
Standing out
Subscribe
takes
if you're
strength.
ready to choose yourself.
Disappointing others takes
Comment
practice.
if you're done living
You might
someone
lose some
else's
people
life.
along the way.
Share if you
You
want
might
to help
face
others
judgment,
find their way home
criticism,
to themselves.
rejection.
Because
You might
together
feel
we're
alone
building a
sometimes.
community of people
But
who
Jung
refuse to
discovered
hide
something
anymore.
beautiful.
Together
When you're
we're
willing to be
proving that
alone with your true
authenticity is
self,
possible,
you're never
that real
really
selves
alone.
can emerge,
When you
that
like who
true
you
life
are,
can begin
other
at
people's
any
opinions
age.
matter less.
Together we're
When you
showing the
accept
world
yourself,
what Jung's
you don't need
dangerous
everyone
discovery
else's
really
acceptance.
means,
And
that becoming
slowly,
who you really
you'll discover
are
that the
isn't
people worth
dangerous at
knowing will
all.
find you.
It's the only
The
safe
opportunities
choice you
that
can
fit
make.
you will appear.
Thank you for watching.
The life
Thank you
that's
for
actually
listening.
yours
Thank you for
will
being brave
unfold.
enough to consider that
Jung
maybe,
called
just
this
maybe, you're
synchronicity.
ready to meet your real self.
When your outer life starts
Now
matching
go
your
be
inner truth.
yourself.
When you
The
stop
world is
fighting who you
waiting.
are, life stops fighting you back.